Welcome back to Beyond the Rings, Paris 24 Outreach, 30 Stories in 30 Days. My name is Jeff Wells. I have the great privilege of being the founder of Beyond the Rings Outreach, Olympic Outreach Ministry, where we basically experienced Acts 1:8 all in one place as we have shared the gospel with people from our neck of the woods in St. Louis to some of the most far reaching places on earth. And so, in this episode today, I want to share, kind of going back a little bit of my history and involvement in Olympic ministry outreach, and some of my dear friends who are part of another Olympic ministry that helped me get to where I am with Beyond the Ring. So, some of you may or may not know, but Paris 24 was my 11th Olympic outreach. I've now been on the ground during 6 Summer Olympic Games and 5 Winter Olympic Games. And it all goes back to the summer of 2000. The summer of 2000 was Sydney, Australia. Just fun fact about me, I'd only flown once before that trip, and it was just from St. Louis to Atlanta, so it was just a few hours, not very long. Before I took that trip from St. Louis to LA, spent the night in LA, and then took not the longest, one of the longest nonstop flights in the world at the time from LA to Sydney, Australia. It was 15 hours. And so, um, when I went internationally, I went big, because, I think I don't know if I've had another flight close to the 15 hours that I did going to Australia that one time from LA. So that was the summer of 2000. I was 31 or 32 years old, and I had a 9-month-old baby girl at home and a wonderful wife. I was on staff at Grace Baptist Church in Evansville, Indiana. Shout out to Grace. They were such a supportive church. I was the student pastor there, ministering to middle school, high school, and college students. And that's where I met my now dear friend and mentor, Dave Gwynn, taking the college group from Grace Baptist to a retreat. I can't remember the timeline exactly, but it was mere months from the Summer Olympic Games in Sydney, Australia. I'd never left North America. I'd only been to Mexico a couple times just across the border because my Christine's family lived in Texas, and we would actually lived in Phoenix, and we met up to go across the border a couple of times from the Arizona area, and then took a family trip with them one time into Mexico. But other than that, I'd never been anywhere internationally. I hadn't even been to Canada at that time. And so I didn't have a passport. At the time, my wife was a stay at home mom, and we were trying to survive, not surviving well, on a youth pastor's salary, renting a little house through the gracious kindness of the landlords who were members of our church who helped us out tremendously, rent, and just trying to minister. And met Dave at this retreat. And over lunch, by the time lunch is over, he's inviting me to come and be a part of big outreach in Sydney, Australia. And I was blown away. Never even thought of anything like this, never heard of anything like this, had no money, had no idea how this would work. I'm like, I'll pray about it. Came back to Grace, met with my pastor, a good man, Tom Savage, and he said, "Well, let's just pray about it." We began praying, and um, was really, really open to the opportunity, but didn't have the funds. Had no way of coming up with a sizable amount of money that it was going to take part of this. But God just began to not just open doors, but blow doors off their hinges in preparing the way for me. Financially, not a problem. Had every penny I need. And then passport, no problem. Applied for it, got it expedited, had my passport. And one thing after another, and I'm on a plane headed to Sydney, Australia. And it's there that I met some of my dearest friends to this day. On this picture, if you're watching this on YouTube, are some of my dearest friends from my Olympic ministry days prior to Paris 2024. It's only some of them because these are just a couple of the group shots I got, but it includes some of my dearest friends as part of the Olympic ministry. Basically, it's Peggy, Stephen, and Paige in one picture where I'm not wearing a hat, and the picture where I am wearing a hat, it's Myrna, Paige, and Stephen again. And these three ladies and Stephen, are some of my dearest friends and some of the greatest blessings I've ever had in ministry. Uh, Paige, Peggy, and I go back all the way back to Sydney 2000. We're all there together for the very first time in Sydney. And I don't think any of them made all the Olympics like I did. I know there was one that Peggy had to miss out on, and I think a couple that Paige had to miss out. And Stephen and Paige met and married after Sydney 2000, and so he wasn't in all of them. And then Myrna, her first Olympics was Salt Lake City in 2002. And so even though we all haven't been at every Olympics and we all haven't been there at the beginning, we are all very close and dear friends, and they are just incredible people, uh, incredible brother and sisters in Christ who I love dearly. They're like family, and God used each of them in very special ways over the years. Um, Peggy, Paige, and I would often be the Three Musketeers when we would be together as uh, teams when we were at the Olympics before. And you always knew you had a powerhouse with Myrna because she was so friendly, so outgoing, and always engaging people. And I just love these people. Dave Gwynn started taking groups to the Olympics in 1988 and using pin trading to engage in gospel conversations. And through a variety of avenues and connections, has known all of us for many, many years and recognized that God could use people like us to effectively use pen trading for gospel conversation and pour it into our lives. Dave's ministry is called International Sports Chaplains, and he is not only an evangelist who loves the Lord at heart, but he's also a very talented artist. And he created the pen that they've used for decades. And the Olympic pen trading community called it the Jesus pen. And I've been very blessed to, for 10 Olympics, to serve with international sports chaplains, Dave Gwynn, and the many, many wonderful people that he has surrounded himself with and invested in mentoring and giving them opportunity to engage in gospel conversation using Olympic pen trading over the years. So I wanted to share when I was sharing so much about the Beyond the Rings ground team that as much as I get to celebrate and be the current face of this new phase Olympic ministry on the ground and Olympic Games through Beyond the Rings, which is a new Olympic ministry. There are many who have poured into my life and who've helped me grow um, who I am today, not just when I'm on the ground during the Olympics, but as a follower of Christ, as a child of God, as a pastor, as a brother in Christ. It's helped me help grow as a husband and a father. So many people, and these folks just represent them. And Paris was that unusual transition time because they were there and I was there, but we weren't on the same team. We were serving in two different ministries at this time. But it was a sweet, sweet joy of brief fellowship when we got to be together. The few times we ran into each other, and when we were there in Paris, and whether we get to be on the ground ever again in Olympic City or not, I know and they know that we are there for each other, no matter what, no matter what, no matter where. They all live down in the South, but I don't hold that against them, and they don't hold it against me that I'm up here virtually a Yankee. but blessed by these dear friends and the Olympic Ministry of International Sports Chaplains, my dear friend Dave Gwynn, and all the others who I've had the joy of knowing over the years through the 10 previous Olympic outreaches before I launched Beyond the Ring. So I wanted you to have a little bit of history of understanding how Beyond the Rings came to be what it is today, and the many good people who love the Lord who have poured into Jeff Wells and who continue to pray for and are highly encouraged by Beyond the Rings and what God is doing through Beyond the Ring moving forward as they continue to work and serve through international sports chaplains. And I continue to lead out and multiplying and adding yet another ministry on the ground through Beyond the Ring, who's Olympic penetrating engaging gospel conversation. Thank you for tuning in and checking out another episode Beyond the Rings, Paris 24 Outreach, 30 stories and 30 short stories in 30 days. Let me just wrap up by reminding you to come out and join us for our celebration coming up on Sunday, September 29th at 3 p.m. Concord Church in South St. Louis on Tesson Ferry. Join us for dessert and drinks as the ground team shares stories, pictures, and video, along with some of our pins from our outreach during the Paris Olympic Games this summer. And we will also use this as a time to launch the Beyond the Rings Italy 2026 outreach and invite you to give to a love offering that will be used to kick off Italy outreach. Thanks again for tuning in today, and I appreciate it. God bless. We'll talk again soon.